Greetings and welcome back to Homebrew. Today we're going to be recapping the Session 5 of the Call of the Hunger campaign, as well as going over our prep for Session 6. So what did we do on our last episode of the Call of the Hunger? Our party gathered up and we used a little bit of our time to button up a little bit of the conversation and rehash what happened with Watan Dulas, which I think was a really good choice given how confused our players were at the end of the last session. So after we finished that up, we sent our players off to go meet up with the Timberman, who is going to guide them to essentially the gathering of the Timbermen as they decide what to do with Watan Dulas's proposal of uniting with him or else. As our party set off to find the Timberman by the name of Figured, they ran into a group of trolls, and we got to use this as an opportunity to show that the trolls, while they were, predatory and eating this meat and stuff like that, they were basically picking on one of the memory, which had just attacked the party. It was really interesting to see that the party wanted to go to the defense of the memory tree, even though the memory trees attacked them in the last experience with it. So that was kind of interesting. But anyway, so they attacked this thing, and I thought the combat went really well. We had some great engagement with someone trying to use a torch. There was some mud, so we got some grappling going on. There was some elevation that really played a nice role into how everything flowed. We had a couple figures go down, but we also had our healer heal the crits off of them afterwards. So there was a really good back and forth and flow of the battle. The hero Emery, who had her familiar, got to use her familiar's abilities for the first time, which was really nice to see as well, and they proved wildly effective. So that was all just a really great to see. I ended up giving the trolls a trait that I did not have on their sheets, but I thought it would be very useful. In fact, I'm considering having it on all melee combatants who are, monsters. They just use their bare hands, and that is that they could basically get to do a grapple as a maneuver instead of an action, so they can grab something and then attack something, or they can add advantage off of a bare-handed attack to grapple. So kind of more in line with D&D on that one with the new rules coming out. But either way, I thought that the combat flowed nicely with giving them that trait as a minor benefit or improvement since coming to the table, or since my draft phase, so to speak. And players didn't really need to know anything about that either, because even though it would make it technically harder for them, it made it more fun, and that's the important part of being a DM. And they were able to surmount the task of defeating these trolls and heal up a bit, not without a little bit of damage on them, but I think they ended up pretty much close to full health, which is great. It was cool to see. When they did finally meet up with Figured, the conversation with him I thought went really well. It was really fun for me, at least, and the players got to engage in some role play and ask questions that helped it with their immersion a little bit more, which was great to see. I even gave them the benefit of adding a little bit of a permanent health boost with some XP right then and there, just for showing some engagement with the story. And the veil of the material that they were drinking that Figured was offering, showing, hey, sometimes it pays to experiment and go out of your character's bubble a little bit, right? So I think that'll encourage my players to try different things moving forward as well. And after that conversation with Figured, that's where they left off, getting ready to head off. Now, as a DM, I was a little bit concerned here because I knew that they had so many different routes to go. So I basically just asked them, hey, when you get to the Nexus, which is where Figured is leading you, this could start going in multiple different directions, and I don't want to prepare so much. So I basically asked them, hey, what are you guys planning on doing after you leave the Nexus and get some information from them? And they said, well, we'll probably go to Bracken Bastion either way. So as a DM, I knew that before this, Emery was hell-bent on getting her main quest figured out, and so I basically settled on preparing her stuff in the means of a structured fight with the willow trees later on. So I already had that prepared, and all I needed to do then was flush out Bracken Bastion and what was going on there. I didn't expect there to be a structured fight between here and there, but I started to think, you know what? We had Falchion. Basically he's an homage to the Predator, stalking the woods. already kind of drafted up as a fun side quest. So I thought, why don't we start including him in the travel between the Nexus and the Bracken Bastion? Maybe he'll start dropping off heads and start showing them that he's a player in the area, and he's hunting, right? So we'll leave animals that have been killed for sport around and just slowly start to incorporate that. And depending on how the next session goes, and if we need more meat to our session, we can drop in a quick combat with him. And as far as our preparation for our structured encounter, it wouldn't take too much. We have all of his stats already flushed out from our previous encounters. And then we've got a map of all of the layers of the woodlands, of generic feeding grounds, a generic thicket branch, and a generic canopy map. And then what we can do is we can take, I've got some Tengu figures that we can just throw in on the map, call it Falchion, and then have the characters skirmish with him and have them get away. That's kind of the hope for that. But we might not even have to come to that, because the main goal was to get the characters to the Bracken Bastion and go from there. So the Bracken Bastion is going to be 2 days away if we take a look at our map, which means that also in the time of this span, so we're going to have a couple more checks with the hunger mechanic as well. So maybe the characters will get a little bit more suspense building up with this. Anyways, either way, when the characters get to the Bracken Bastion, we already know there's several things that are going to happen, right? So we had to consider, and I definitely had to focus on Wallaby and his story, right? So Wallaby is from the Bracken Bastion, and he's been living in Lemoore as kind of an outcast, right? Because he's a witcher who's not very good at the hunting or anything like that aspects. So what is his role here? So I pictured him as like the nerd of the group, or the dweeb, and then most of the other redeemed or Asuelun would be kind of thumbing their noses at him. We also had to have a prominent figure who runs the Bracken Bastion, so we had to come up with someone for that. So I named the guy Rothradine. I kind of got a couple notes on how he behaves. What are his thoughts on Wallaby? How would they interact as well? We know Wallaby's going to meet Jackold here already, so I paraphrased that conversation. What's he going to say with Jackold, and what does Wallaby do after this, right? And so the basics is that he has to go find Leanne and Shay moving out of here, right? So if the characters are listening in on this conversation, I've already got it knocked up with some important details. I've also gotten an opinion about what Leanne and Shay is and what Fae are written up, and I put that in my notes here as well. So all of this, if I just zoom in a little bit for you guys, we are here. We got a visit to the Carnation, and then we got our notes for Bracken Bastion. Most of this is just going to be theater of the mind, conversations, and roleplay. Anyways, so in here I've got, if I scroll down, an opinion on Leanne and Shay in the eyes of Jackold and the Rothradine. I've got Wallaby's mission notes. I've got G, which is the character that Emery is trying to meet up with. I've got what G needs from you guys if she's going to work with you. Tit for tat as well. So another little potential side quest out there too. So we got a lot of different options here. We know where Wallaby's going after this, and if the players listen on the conversation. I also didn't have a mock-up of what Bracken Bastion looks like, so I just had to write up a description of the place as well. Just so that way we build in some consistency for the next time that they visit, and we have a stable world. So I made up some fun little thoughts based off of the vegetation of the area and kind of the concepts of the Witchers. So they got some like dragon-proof netting up top, but they're going to be living in one of the trees, kind of up and off of the feeding grounds themselves. We also got to remember that this place is pretty much empty. So we only got like 5 or 6 hunters or Asuelun in this place at the time that people are coming by, which helps us without having to build up this huge elaborate like social system and all this other stuff, because most of them are off answering the call. I also thought it would be fun to start engaging more of the story to have G have a boyfriend who is off answering the call nearby. So then our characters have to go out and meet up with him. He's trying to kill some profane nearby. Everyone thinks that there's all of the Asuelun think that there's a profane nearby that they can take care of. That's why they're off trying to find them and kill them. In this particular case, we're going to have Ji's boyfriend, which we got his name right here, Hanubo. He's going to be basically suffering from the hunger, but extremely, right? And so the way I thought this might work out is that he was hunting this creature, and essentially he had it hunt him, and he lured it to Cinder the bear, which ate it, and that's how he got rid of the creatures. The reason why he's still out there is because he managed to kill the babies, but there's the big ones that are still in the cave, so to speak. And then I thought, we can start tying more of this together. How about these creatures are coming through a portal, which is very similar to the portals that our character Ilya is supposed to be investigating, and the stones that he's trying to recover. So that'll give our characters a little bit more of like a what's going on over here, and maybe they start trying to piece together some of the world's background information as well. So moving off of that. We also know that the character is eventually going to go to Paratisium. Paratisium is the bug place capital down here. So if they're going to be coming down here, we built up some materials for them. A side quest of take the queen egg and run away with it, and try to set up a new colony elsewhere, because they're starting to overcrowd, which is starting to cause all of this carnation business being a mixed, unbalanced system as far as the ecosystem goes. And so we can actually do is take the person that they would meet at Paratisium and say that they are actually at Bracken Bastion. They took the egg, they ran to Bracken Bastion in the hopes of finding a hero, which they would think that the Witchers, so to speak, would help them with this. And then they find the players. And maybe Rotherdine says something like, we can't get involved with the politics of this, so either you guys need to send them back, at which point they'll probably die, or you can help him. Which will also take the characters out and into the world. We'll say maybe that Gizgabel, the one with the egg who tried to bring it to safety, he knows that the only way of getting it to safety is to go further west and find some of the bug people who have been captured by the Flayun tribes and try to make a new colony, at which point now our players are getting exposure to some of those other areas of the woodlands, and you can start tying in hearing about the Dajang that escaped Ilya. So now we've got more information tying in the other side quests, and we can potentially start tying in hearing about some of the Rattan tribes that were nearby as well. So we got a lot of information that we can use for next session, just from the characters going to the Bracken Bastion after having gone and talked to the Timbermen, which are essentially Ents, over in Carnation at the Nexus as well. And then we have that potential of incorporating the characters being hunted in between those two destinations. So a lot of material. I hope that the players don't throw a wrench at me in the middle of this, but it sounds like we should be set up for after the next quest, asking the players, what do you plan on doing with all this information? And then from there, we can probably build more structured combats and whatnot moving forward from there. So this is just a recap of our session 5 and a prep for our session 6. If you have questions, throw them in the comments. I'll try to get back to you on those, and thank you for tuning in.